taking some questions from the audience. How about right there?
Hi, I'm Janice Nickel. You've recently given a call for increased philanthropy amongst your peers. Earlier today, there was a session on the hybrid value chain, and what they found, the entrepreneurs there found that investors weren't willing to engage until they'd seen, the business model proved or the risk was mitigated. Could you see using some of that philanthropy to create a fund for early stage entrepreneurs in the hybrid value chain?
Well, there's two things that are worth looking at independently. One is, could we have more philanthropy? In the US, which the number's the greatest, 15% of the largest states go to philanthropy. 15% does, 85% doesn't. And that's of large estates, over $100 million states. When I first looked at that, I thought, geez, I thought it was going to be 50%. I didn't realize it was only 15, which is better than any other country. And so you start to dig into that, and issues about wills and children, and if you've had a career where you're successful, then if you start giving away, everybody's going to be begging you for things, and do you get the staff, and they have their own agenda. Anyway, philanthropy can be a not so fun thing, whereas it should be as fun as making the fortune, maybe more fun, if it's done well. And so we had dinners with a bunch of people who've done giving and talked about what was not fun, what worked, what didn't work. And we created 4 people who have capacity to do large giving, this giving pledge thing, which is the thing we got 40 people into. That, by design, does not have an agenda where we're saying, and you should give to this or that. We celebrate the diversity. We don't tell people what they have to give to. Now, we'll learn from each other and partner and things like that. But as a whole, it's just about give to something you believe in. Then there's the question of, okay, is philanthropy picking the things whose economic value might be low, but whose value on human existence is very, very high? And that's a very difficult thing. Remember, venture capital is wrong over 90% of the time. And I think philanthropy is not better than that in terms of its ability to pick things. The beauty of venture capital is if you pick Intel or Google or Apple, the leverage of picking a good one pays off both for the investors, but also to society in terms of the resources tied up and all that, way more than pays off, even more than the investors get. There's a net benefit that comes out of that. When it comes to things like inventing a new toilet, there's just not much money goes into it. The most brilliant kid thinks, okay, should I go to McKinsey? Should I work on toilets? Should I go to Wall Street? Should I work on toilets? It doesn't come out the right way some of the time. So you end up with the low IQ guy on the toilets. So various ways, whether they're challenges, prizes, bringing particular understanding, there's lots of ways of mediating that. I don't know if a new fund, there's lots of different mechanisms, and I'm always open-minded to that approach. Maybe a new fund could help there, but you have to really decide what thing you're going after. What is your metric? We go after, one of our things is childhood deaths, reducing those. A very measurable thing, and fortunately, clear progress. You can measure. Most things we do, if they don't save a life for $2,000, why do them? Because we could take the $2,000 and save a life. So anybody who thinks about philanthropy, giving to anything, if you don't meet the $2,000 per life, your money probably could be better used somewhere else.
Jen Zidell, Blue Planet Network. We're in the safe drinking water sector for the bottom of the pyramid. And I've been in the not-for-profit and philanthropic world for, I think, 40 of my 72 years. And what I have noticed is that if I go to the for-profit world, there is a forcing mechanism that encourages corporations to merge, eliminate expenses, and become more efficient. I don't see any kind of mechanism like that in the not-for-profit world. Therefore, it has remained unbelievably fractured and unbelievably siloed, no matter whether it's safe drinking water, deforestation, et cetera, et cetera. Can we as a society come up with a forcing mechanism that makes the not-for-profit world as efficient as the for-profit world?
Well, remember, the for-profit world is a mess. I mean, have you ever worked at a large company? The for-profit world has this beauty of it cleans up its messes. It identifies its messes and it de-resources its messes. That's what the for-profit guys have. And take Microsoft. Microsoft has a big profit stream. We're allowed to pick things that won't pay off for 6 or 7 years. Speech recognition, visual recognition. That's part of the beauty of it, is that we are not subject to market forces on a daily, weekly, monthly basis when Microsoft Research picks some 10-year thing. Because we picked 10-year things like Windows and Office, we've been given the chance to get up to bat, and we can swing a lot of times. We're even allowed to have strikes, A 250 batting average in that game, you win. You don't need 406. So the capitalism has a lot of complexity. It's not kind of magical. The nonprofit world, what it has is things that aren't very large, things that have high overhead, things where people think, oh, we'll do the pilot project. Just fund us to do the pilot project, and then everyone in the world will fund the scale up because they'll all know that we're so brilliant. So what you have is 10,000 pilot projects, a few of which might actually be decent, but they're not going anywhere. So it is the idea of identifying needs very carefully and saying who meets those needs. Take in the clean water world, there's this big thing right now that there's UV techniques, there's chlorine techniques, there's filter techniques, and there's different needs in different places. It's not very well organized. I think there's a chance through some prizes and bringing communities together to do that. But it will always be imperfect because we can't shut down. Nobody gets to shut down the thing that somebody thinks is cute and looks good. But you can bring metrics in. There's at least 6 foundations today that are very metric-oriented, and it is fantastic. And it is going to influence other foundations in a very big way. It's not just 1 or 2 now. Well, I'll damn the ones I don't mention. So I'll just mention one other one. There's this group in London called Children's Investment Fund, which is Chris Hahn and his wife Jamie. They are very measurement-oriented.
Get the microphone, please.
I was just going to ask you about education. Jigar Shah from the Carbon War Room. Do you think that if we go to lectures and all these things on the web that we're actually going to de-emphasize the actual infrastructure, the actual school itself and the space itself?
Well, school, you have to look at different phases where K through 12 is partly about babysitting the kids so the parents can do other things. So, yes, having the kids go to a common place for K through 12, I don't predict some radical change in that. Homeschooling's about 3 or 4%, and it keeps getting better. In fact, they're on the cutting edge of using some of these tools and giving feedback for those. But actually, some of the best charter schools are these boarding schools where you completely immerse the kid in the learning ethic. In KIPP, all the high-performance charting schools, which have come at it in different ways, they're all long school days. KIPP, which is kind of an exemplar, very long school day. You come in on every other Saturday. You come in 3 weeks in the summer. You create a full immersion environment. So if you want to take inner city 5th grade kids and get them to think, hey, learning is what I'm about. It's fun. I do that with other kids. You need to have at least 80% of their waking hours devoted to your thing, or else you lose. And so these charter schools do that. And so that's very different than saying, okay, for college courses, if all of you want to learn about global warming, go to Teach 12. There's a 6-hour course, that's the shortest they have, that really goes through the basic science and how it works and what's been known in a very effective way. The self-motivated learner will be on the web. And there will be far less place-based things. In fact, even getting feedback, having group discussion, fine, you have video, you have bulletin boards, you have all sorts of things that college, except for the parties, needs to be less place-based. After all, what are we trying to do? We're trying to take the education that today the tuition is, say, $50,000 a year, so over 4 years, the $200,000 education that is increasingly hard to get because there's less money for it and the capacity's not there. And we're trying to provide it to every kid who wants it. And only technology can bring that down, not just to 20,000, but to 2,000. So yes, place-based activity in that college thing will be 5 times less important than it is today. When you take K through 9, I don't see a change. In fact, the way we do the hybrid of bringing technology into that learning environment, so half the class is doing Khan Academy and half the class is doing a discussion group, we're funding a lot of, those are hybrid learning models, we're funding a lot of people to try that. Now, the room for innovation, thank God for charters, there's no room for innovation in the standard system. And so, we're getting some experimentation, but there should be about 20 times as much as there is.